Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Wednesday, July 15th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. We talk Royals with beat writer Lynn Worthy and Star columnist Sam Mellinger. Full disclosure, we spoke yesterday, and since then, a couple of news items have dropped that you need to be aware of. Manager Mike Matheny named Danny Duffy the opening day starter. We figured that would be the case with Brad Keller still out dealing with the coronavirus, and we said as much in our conversation, so now it's official. The bigger news, catcher Salvador Perez was activated from the injured list in time for Tuesday evening scrimmage. I saw him get a base hit in his first at bat. We spent a good deal of time talking about Salvy. It was in terms of when he returns, and now we know he has. That should bring you up to date. After a break, you'll hear from Royals pitcher Tim Hill. The lefty reliever is a colon cancer survivor, and that made him an obvious candidate to opt out this season because of COVID-19. We know other players around the league elected not to play, but Hill said, no way, he was playing this season. You'll hear from him later in the show. But first, here's Lynn Worthy and Sam Mellinger talking Royals. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good, Blair.
Good. What's happening?
Hey, not much. So I did some calculating. I think this is one of Sam's tricks. He goes on to dates between days or days between dates. and here, I did this morning, and since the Royals last played in March, and it was March 10th. Lynn, remind me if I'm on this. They play like a split squad. They had a split squad deal on March 10th. And won a game and lost a game, and then they got rained out the next day, and then baseball got postponed after that. So,
that's exactly right. You were saying 10th, and I'm like, wait a minute, but the day I had in my mind was the 12th, but that's the day that everything got canceled. And the day before, we're supposed to be I went to Goodyear. They were supposed to be against the Indians. And Brady Singer was going to start, and that one got rained out. Singer got pushed back to the next day in relief of Duffy, as I recall. And Mondesi was in the lineup for the first time, and that game never got played.
Right. So I don't know who else may have gotten rained out that day. Obviously, it was raining in the Valley of the Sun, but nobody will have gone longer between games than the Royals by the time the regular season begins. So I've got 133 days between exhibition games for the Royals because now we know they're going to start on they're going to have an exhibition game on Monday. So that got me wondering, so what's the usual sort of the time period between the end of a regular season and then the start of the preseason or the exhibition season the next year? And I did the same thing, used the same days to dates, 144 days. So approximately. So it's pretty much the same. I mean the time off that baseball will have endured is not much different from the end of the previous regular season to the beginning of the next preseason. So it's I guess it's a long-winded way of saying it will have been a long time since baseball has been played by anybody. But let's concentrate on the Royals. We know now that there's a 3-game exhibition schedule. There are 2 games at Kauffman Stadium next Monday and Tuesday against the Astros, and then on Wednesday they go to St. Louis to play the Cardinals, and then the Royals open up on Friday at Cleveland. So, Lynn, it's obviously incredibly different than the exhibition season that you left behind in Arizona. How can the Royals manage their roster and their playing time in 3 exhibition games with 60 guys and wanting to get looks at a lot of people?
As you were talking about the days in between, it just occurred to me that when we get to the end of this season, it's very possible Mike Matheny will have managed more exhibition in terms of length of time than the actual regular season. if you count all this time from February, March, and then count all the way through here, that he'll have been the manager, and they'll still have technically been an exhibition season. So his exhibition season will be longer than his first regular season. But to answer your question, that was just a little tangent there. But to answer your question, the 60 guys, I mean, they won't. It's almost assured they won't have 60 guys for the games. The first game they start on Monday. And I think I asked Mike the other day, and even he said that they'll probably have some guys who, if they want to make sure they get some work in, they may do some stuff before the game or after the game. Probably before the game on Monday. Tuesday's game is an afternoon game, so it might be after the game then, because they'll be at home, so they have the luxury to do that. But also, I think there's guys. I mean, they're of that 60. There's a group of guys who are there mostly for development. I mean, like Bobby Witt Jr. is not going to make the 30-man roster. So, I mean, he's not a guy that you necessarily have to see in an exhibition game. I mean, maybe they want to have him in there, because they're probably not going to play all their guys the full 9 innings. They're going to work them up to 9 innings by the end of those 3 exhibition games. But I mean, guys like that you could leave off, and it's not going to hurt anything because they weren't going to make the 30. So you'll have a smaller group of guys you're going to be actually looking at for the 30 to make opening day roster. So that's going to help with it. But also, I think they will definitely be probably a few innings for their main guys to start the first game, and they'll build them up to 9 innings over the course of the 3.
Okay. So what is going to happen with starting pitching? Not so much in the exhibition, because as you said, everybody will get innings, but what's going to happen once they get to the new regular season?
Well, it looks like Duffy's probably going to be your opening day starter, and he's still, as far as exhibition season, fairly stretched out considering everything that's gone on these last couple of months. He pitched last night. We're here on Tuesday now talking, but Monday night he pitched 3 innings on the field and then another inning in the cage. His last intra-squad outing was about 4 innings with 1 on the field and 3 in the cage. He said during this hiatus, he's tried to stay stretched out to about 4 innings, and you still have another week. So I would suspect that, wouldn't be surprised if he's able to go 4 or 5 innings in that opener. Now, after that, I'm not sure. It's going to be a play by ear, I think, because we don't know if Brad Keller is going to be back, and if he is back, how many innings he'll be able to give you his first time out. Jacob Junis, I think he threw the live BP last week, but I'm not sure how stretched out he is as far as innings. I think Mike Montgomery, I think he's around 3 or 4 innings worth of, in intra-squad type settings that he can throw. And then after that, you still don't know what the 5th starter is. So it's going to be a lot of play by ear. I mean, with the 30-man roster, you'll have some extra bullpen guys most likely, so you'll try and make up for it that way. But yeah, the pitching's up in the air. Aside from the fact that probably Duffy starts opening day, everything after that is going to be a mix and match. It sounds like.
Right. Well, and we know you mentioned Mike Matheny and John Sherman, the new owner. I'm sure they're as eager as anyone to get this season started. And Sam, I know you've been out there to Kauffman a few times. I haven't been out there yet. I'm hoping to see one of the exhibition games next week. But how's Matheny been handling this? I see some of his Zoom calls, and he's got the mask on until he talks, and which is great optics, I think. And then you see it around his neck. But it seems to me, we talked about this during spring training, and it appears to be true now that not many bad moves for Mike Matheny so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's yet to pull a pitcher, right? Or call for a hit and run or whatever. But my sense from him, and I talked to him for quite a long time, back when you could get on a plane and go talk to somebody face to face in spring training, and I'm hoping to get some more time with him this week for I want to say column, but it's basically a profile of him and sort of how he's changed since his days in St. Louis. And my sense from him so far, and it can't be emphasized enough that the bullets have not started flying yet, but it seems like he has taken everything exactly the way that you would want. That he's taken an honest sort of self-evaluation of who he is and who he became in St. Louis. Try to figure out what worked and keep that. Try to figure out what didn't, what caused conflict, and fix that. And from everything I can tell, and Lynn's out there a lot more than I am, obviously, but from everything that I can tell, he is earnest, he is honest, he's genuine, he's sincere. He treats these guys like men. That doesn't mean you don't have high expectations for them, because he does. But look, man, it was always very easy to see why Dayton Moore specifically was attracted to Mike Matheny specifically. Those guys have just stunningly similar worldviews in a lot of ways. But from what I can tell, in Surprise and now in this summer camp restart, he's been what the Royals were hoping, that what they were expecting.
He relates so well to players, it seems, that he actually got the COVID. He had his own bout back in May, and of course the Royals have had their experience with this now up to, I think, 4 players, perhaps. Nobody's come back yet from those that have been tested positive for COVID-19. And that's going to play into things next week. Do we have any idea, Lynn, about the return of any of the players that have been out with COVID?
Not yet. I mean, I think that there was some sense that maybe Valoria might be getting close, and he's not technically. Well, he's one of the guys. I mean, so you say 4 guys. There's 4 guys that they've announced had positive tests. Now there's been some other guys, who put on the IL with undisclosed injury. And you remember now, there's the whole situation is where they've got to get clearance from the guy to actually announce a positive test and things like that, and get HIPAA laws and all that sort of stuff. So Valoria, there was never an injury for Valoria, but he went on the 10-day DL on the 4th. So he's around that point where, at least in theory, he could come off. I think he was there was. Somebody noticed that he was listed on the lineup card yesterday, even though he was never available yesterday, and they haven't made a roster move as of a couple minutes ago to add him or activate him yet. So I would think that he would be one that you might start seeing soon. And Salvador Perez, was asymptomatic as far as we know. So he's got to, have 72 hours, no symptoms. Got to pass 2 tests in a 24-hour period. So, I mean, they're hopeful, is the word they keep using, that they get some guys back here soon, because they've got 3 catchers on their 40-man roster, and all 3 of them are on the IL right now with the positive tests for Cam Gallagher over the weekend, and Salvador Perez at the beginning of the camp, and then Gloria with the undisclosed injury. So they still have 6 catchers that they're in camp with them right now that they can use, but they're not likely to have a guy like MJ Melendez, who hasn't played above high A, actually be on the 30-man when the season starts. So they need to start getting some guys back and start getting them ready for the regular season start.
Yeah, and it seems like it's been a while for Salvy, hasn't it? He would seem that he would be close to returning, just because of the dates. I think he was the first Royals player, I believe, to announce that he had the COVID.
Yeah, he was the first announced, but I think technically by the day they put him on the IL, it's the same day. Maybe it's the day before, but I think it's the same day as Valoria. And then, Matt Reynolds is an infielder, is another guy who went on the IL with undisclosed, no injury given. And that was all the same day. So some of these guys could be, looking to come back in the next couple of days here. We just don't know. And it depends on the medical staff and how things progress with, the ones that we know have COVID, how it progresses with the tests and everything, and the other guys it would be speculation, but assuming that it's something similar, it's again how things progress and how they get through the medical procedures.
I don't mean to be flip about this, but Salvador, we talked about when he was catching 145, 150 games a year. We always talked about his body's just going to break down, but. Am I being insensitive, Sam, to say that the fact that he didn't play last year because of the Tommy John surgery, and it will have been, for reasons he can't control, it will have been, an additional X number of months before he appears in a game, that maybe his body, he could tack on a couple years as a catcher. I know the Royals have had other thoughts with him at different positions, but I don't know. It just seems like he's getting hit the reset button in a way that maybe others at his position haven't over the years.
Yeah, 100%. I believe that. And, more importantly, I think the Royals believe it. It's not so simple that it's just, you get an extra day for every day you're not catching, right? Like, because he's still getting older, like we all are, and hope to continue getting older for many years to come, right? But I do think that particularly for him and particularly for that position that this kind of thing matters. He was never, just because of how big he is and some other factors, he was never going to be a guy that's like Carlton Fisk and like, behind the plate in his 40s or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's an extra season. Maybe it's, a few more games than he otherwise would catch next year, or the year after, or whatever. It's a touchy subject, and this is something that the Royals have kind of been internally preparing for years, because Sal loves to catch. And that is, not just his identity, sort of personally. And I think the Royals believe that's where a lot of his energy comes from, and that energy is one of his more valuable traits. But it's also where a lot of his value comes from, if we're honest. I mean, if you look at his numbers, he'll hit some home runs, but if you look at his on base and batting average, things like that, that plays a lot better when you're a catcher than it does when you're a first baseman. So it's kind of a delicate balance, and some of this depends on some of these guys that we've been talking about, particularly MJ Melendez. If he can get that bat going, that may or may not affect Salvy's clock as well. So no, I absolutely believe look, you never want to get hurt, and obviously nobody is happy about the situation we're in now. But some time off for Sal, man, that's not going to be a bad thing in the long term, I don't think.
Hey, Sam, to go along with that idea of it being part of his identity, in the offseason, I think, even Jim Murphy, was Dayton and Matheny both had mentioned the idea that, he might get a little time at first base this year as they ease him in and everything. And so, of course, the first time we talked to Salvy in Arizona, that gets mentioned. And Salvy's response, because, I think it was just sort of like a given. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. He's going to play a little bit of first base, get some time in there. So we ask him, and he's like, I'm catcher. I prepare to catch 162 games. I'm not a first baseman. And it wasn't so much anything against the, with the front office. I think it was just, we talk again, going to the idea of identity. He's like, I'm a catcher. Like this first base stuff. He's like, I don't know who you're trying to put at first base, but I'm a catcher. So
yeah, it was funny. I had a similar conversation with him in Surprise again, this is back when we thought it was going to be a 162 game season. But I remember asking him, how many games realistically do you think you'll play at catcher? And he says 162. And I kind of look at him like, come on, and he goes, okay, fine. And I think his next answer was like 140 or something else, which is still not realistic, but it does go to show you kind of have to pull him off. And this is another one of the many things on the list with Mike Matheny that'll be interesting to monitor. Maybe not so much over a 60-game season, but next year when hopefully we're back to 162. But remember how many times Ned Yost would be like, yeah, we're giving Sal a day off. And then it turns out like Sal's in the lineup. It was just like Sal was just like, nope, I'm catching. It was like, okay, sorry, do as you were. And I'm wondering how that's going to go with Matheny. Another obviously former catcher, knows the position just like Ned did. But I'm just wondering if that part of it is handled a little bit differently with Mike than it was with Ned.
As a first baseman or a DH, with his numbers, his career numbers, his averages, he's not an all-star player. As a catcher, with his numbers, his offensive numbers, he is an all-star player. Right. And he's been an all-star the last 6 seasons that he's been healthy. So it started in 2013 and has been an all-star the next 6 seasons. And I know that when the Royals were going through their 14 and 15 success, and then the couple years after where they were 500, I was always wondering, okay, who among these players could possibly be a Hall of Famer? And it's not it's just they're not many, if any, right? I mean, they're just who's going to end up having that career that could end up landing them in the Hall of Fame. Lorenzo Cain, Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Alex Gordon. It just doesn't seem like any of those guys. They've all had above average careers to this point, but not, you wouldn't call them Hall of Famers. Right. I think Sal Perez is the only one who has a chance at that. But to me, his only chance is to be almost a lifelong catcher who's a perennial all-star, who averages 25 home runs and 90 RBIs a year and is the gold glover that he is on an annual basis. And I don't know if that's important to him, but at least that's my feeling about him as in his career.
That's absolutely right. No, yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, he's the only one with a chance, just because, I mean, the guys who were good, I mean, Wade Davis just doesn't have the longevity, and it's hard to make it as a reliever. Same thing with Kane. I mean, there's just none of those guys sort of stack up when you think about Hall of Fame. I mean, Royals Hall of Fame, Royals Hall of Fame is going to be stock loaded with these guys. It's going to be packed. But I totally agree with what you just said. His only chance is to continue as a catcher for 10 more years, I would think, at least at this level. And that's I would not bet on that.
Yeah, it might take that. He's at 141 career homers, 503 career RBIs. I mentioned like 90. He hasn't reached 90 in his career.
Yeah,
he might need a couple of good pop years at the bat, some power years. But he'll always have, MVP of the World Series.
Yeah,
and other. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see. But he is. I don't know. I think he's a Royal for life. I think he's on the Alex Gordon track, but we don't even know about that either. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I always think maybe this is something that can go without being said, but I always think like when we talk about who's a Hall of Famer and who's not, the guys that we say aren't, that's not an insult.
No,
right?
no.
Salvador Perez is going to retire having a better career than 90% of the people that ever reached that level. But there's a huge difference between Royals Hall of Fame and in the Cooperstown.
Right. And there's only one full-time Royal that's in Cooperstown. So
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Lynn, we're going to hear from Tim Hill here in a moment, the left-handed relief pitcher. You got to talk with him and be on a Zoom call with him on Monday. What were some of the highlights of that conversation?
Oh, the big thing first out was just his decision to, not to opt out, because he's a guy who's a cancer survivor who, puts him at a higher risk when we start talking about COVID and everything that's going on across the nation. And, and you see a lot of guys opting out. I think we've talked about on past podcasts about guys opting out this season. And he never really gave much thought to it. And then we asked him again last night, and he said he feels, pretty good about the decision he's made. And he feels like the Royals are doing everything that they can do to keep him safe. And, there's obviously, I think you expect there to be a little bit of, nervousness when you see guys around you testing positive as they've had this year. But he still feels like he's 100% all in on being there this season, despite, the potential ramifications if he were to be one of these guys that gets sick.
Yeah, he's definitely had his health challenges over the years. And I thought I got to hear a little bit of it. I thought that was interesting that he's all in on this. And the Royals, we said it last week on the podcast, and it bears repeating that the Royals did not have a player who decided to opt out this season. Not a ton of guys did, but a few, and some big names certainly did. And but no Royals, which is
well. There was the one. Rusty is not going to be on the field this year. Right. I'm not sure I can't remember if we mentioned that in the podcast. We might not have, but Rusty Kuntz won't be coaching first base this year just because he's a guy who's 65 years old, and my understanding is it had more to do with the idea of traveling to all these different cities and not being able to control that environment as much as what they can do here in Kansas City, and it just made it a little bit too much of a risk. So he's going to be with the organization sort of like he was in the past as an advisor, and be watching a lot of the workouts with the group who's going to be at the alternate site, but he's just not going to be coaching first base for this year. The idea would be, or the hope is, that he'll be able to come back next year, but they're going to wait and see on that.
And there's no getting out of baseball for Rusty Kuntz. He's tried this before. He ain't getting out of baseball.
It is comical, man. That guy has tried to retire every year since like 2013. And he's announced it a few times. Nope, I'm retiring.
That's right.
No, you're not, Rusty. Stop it.
We should have a big press conference one day. All right. Hey, great catching up with both you guys, and we'll do it again soon.
All right, Blair.
All right, thanks.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
Hey, Tim, you and I spoke, a while back about your decision not to opt out. It's been, a week and a half of camp. I'm assuming you obviously still feel that was the right decision. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, I still stick by my decision, obviously. There's been some concerns with just, people testing positive and stuff like that, but I still feel that I made the right decision, and I'm not really worried about it.
How do you feel you're pitching this camp so far? It seems like you're getting the ball down for the most part. You left one up today to whip, but how do you think it's going?
Yeah, pretty good. I feel strong, confident in my pitches. Can't complain.
Is there anything else you're still trying to work on?
Just more consistency with the slider, I think. That's basically it.
Hey, Tim, going back to what Flanny had asked about the, just the decision to come in, have the measures since you've been here made you any more comfortable? I know they've done a whole lot. And obviously, again, with the positive tests, how have you felt, in terms of your comfort level as this has gone along?
Well, as far as, the procedures that the Royals are taking, I think it's made me feel a little more comfortable just knowing that they're going to great lengths to protect us, because I do feel like they are. Some of it seems a little bit over the top, when you first look at it, but then when, obviously when you start seeing, people testing positive, you're like, okay, maybe this is necessary. So, yeah, I think they're doing a great job, and I think, as good a job as they can do. Everybody's kind of just it's on the fly and kind of just learning as we go, it seems like. But I feel like what they have put forth has been pretty good.
How would you say things have run? This is obviously a very different setting for spring training, but especially with pitchers, I think there's 32 of you guys were in that 60 pool that came out here. It seems like they've really tried to work it out where you guys are getting the amount of work you need between the cage and the field and everything. Do you feel like it's been similar, other than the setting, to a regular spring training as far as how much work you've been able to get?
Well, as far as the workload goes, yeah, I would say it's pretty similar. It's weird. It's interesting because we're coming in staggered, and at any given time, you look around in the locker room, there might be 3-4 guys in there. So it's a little eerie, I guess you could say. Everything seems kind of empty. It's very different. But as far as getting your work in, I haven't felt cheated in that respect. So the workload is good. It's just very different as far as how we go about it, which is just, it takes some getting used to, but no complaints or anything like that.
How would you say, how well did you think you were able to keep things up during this, 3.5 months between Arizona and here? Were you able to do pretty much everything that you felt like you needed to do coming into camp? Did you feel pretty good about where you were at?
Yeah, I think I was one of the fortunate ones that actually had access to facilities and just constant. I was in Arizona before this, and then I came out here a little early. So I did have access to the facilities and stuff like that, which was really nice. So as far as personally, having training and all that, having a catcher, catch partner, stuff like that, I was one of the lucky ones. So I feel pretty good about that.
So you mean the team facility in Arizona? I know they kept the team facility closed, but you're able to use the fields and everything. That's where you were at?
Not the fields. They weren't letting us use the fields. But when we're in an area like that, you it's just Arizona's obviously got a lot of baseball players. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tim, you've been back for a week and a half. I mean, how fun has it been to be with the guys? Just in these first couple of weeks, be around the guys. How fun has it been for you?
It's been really nice. So it's like, I think it was yesterday, we had like a decent little PFP group, and you see a couple of guys, like, because they have us so staggered, a lot of times you go a while without seeing familiar faces, stuff like that. You get stuck with your same group. So yesterday, you know, a couple of us were mixed in, and you see them walking by just for a second. It's like, oh, hey, how's it going? So it's nice in that respect.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Randy Mason, Savannah Smith, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. A tip of the cap to Lynn Worthy and Sam Mellinger for stopping by and talking Royals. Links to stories about the Royals can be found in the show notes and always on the True Blue app. Hey, earlier in the episode, you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands and still a good one. $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes the Sports Extra with the e-edition. Here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Thursday with another episode.